If you were a McLaren fan, you would be absolutely pulling your hair out.
Or many are.
It's fair to say, isn't it? They gifted Red Bull and Max that win, didn't they?
When there was an early safety car, the second it happened, I thought to myself, well, everyone's going to pit here. Everyone will. And the Ocon didn't, but did a lap later. The only other two that didn't were the two McLaren drivers. And I sat there and I thought to myself, because there's been times this season where we've gone, oh, that seems silly, they've not done that. And by the end of the race, you go, oh, that was a strategy masterclass. And I sat there racking my brain going, okay, this looks like a up, but surely McLaren are seeing something I'm not. And I'm sat
Surely
there.
they've got an idea here. They've seen something. They know what they're doing. The title fight is going to the wire. Hello and welcome to the Fast and the Curious with me, Betty Glover, and Christian Hugill. Christian, I don't have anything else to say other than wow.
Absolutely wow. Yeah. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, I think it is fantastic because someone again said to me on the internet over the weekend, I don't believe you can truly have no preference on who wins. And I honestly don't. So for those of us who either are just completely neutral or are Nico Hulkenberg fans, and it's like when you're watching a title race in the Premier League when you're a Leicester City fan, and they're nowhere near except for one season, and you're just like, I'm just enjoying the race. It's just like that. It's like, well, for us who are the neutral, it was brilliant, wasn't it? Because it is going to the wire for the first time in bloody ages. So not a spectacular race. If that race was round 12, you wouldn't think anything of it. But it was because it was so bloody tense because of the strategy and because of what was on it. It was a tense old race, wasn't it? So yeah, wow, you're right with wow.
It was so tense. I couldn't sit still. And by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, you will see that I am sat in my car. I've been watching the race from somewhere and we just wanted to get this episode done straight away because there's so much to talk about. We didn't want to wait,
Listen,
an hour or so.
I don't think it's fair that Formula One interrupts your dogging. I don't think it's fair. So I'm pleased to support you with this.
It does look bad, doesn't it? I'm here with my ring light in my car so I can get good lighting. Oh, God.
So such is your commitment to this podcast that she does it in a car park straight after she's been working. It's impressive. Well done for being in the car. But yeah, an amazing race where, of course, Oscar Piastri held the lead at the start. Max Verstappen overtook Lando Norris at the start. But of course, this whole race turned on its head when what would be innocuous coming together between two relative backmarkers in Hulk and Pierre threw the race wide open with the safety car, and a crucial decision, well, I was about to say was made, more was not made by McLaren, who chose not to come into the pits. And this handed Max Verstappen a win on a plate, which we will talk about in great detail. So that leaves the top 10 like this, Betty Glover, doesn't it?
Yeah, let's run you through it. So Max Verstappen, P1, his 7th win of the season. Oscar Piastri got P2, his first podium in 6 races, by the way. Carlos Sainz, incredible. First Williams double podium in a season since 2015. Lando Norris P4, Kimi Antonelli P5, George Russell P6, Fernando Alonso got P7 with a heap of points for Aston Martin to jump Haas in the Constructors' Championship. Charles Leclerc at P8, Liam Lawson took P9 and Yuki Tsunoda was there in P10. So it means that the championship going into Abu Dhabi, the final race of the season, looks like this. Lando Norris on 408 points. Max Verstappen, 12 points below him on 396. And then Oscar Piastri's there on 392. Let's just get straight into it. If you were a McLaren fan, you would be absolutely pulling your hair out at that
many
race.
Are. They've been telling me in great detail.
It's fair to say, isn't it? They gifted Red Bull and Max that win, didn't they?
Yeah, well, listen, bearing in mind that you can only do a 25-lap stint in this race for safety reasons, so the 2-stop was mandatory. When there was an early safety car, the second it happened, I thought to myself, well, everyone's going to pit here. Everyone will. And the Ocon didn't, but did a lap later. The only other two that didn't were the two McLaren drivers. And I sat there and I thought to myself, because there's been times this season where we've gone, oh, that seems silly, they've not done that. And by the end of the race, you go, oh, that was a strategy masterclass. And I sat there racking my brain going, okay, this looks like a up, but surely McLaren are seeing something I'm not. And I'm sat
Surely
there.
they've got an idea here. They've seen something. They know what they're doing. We were texting each other, weren't we?
Yeah, and you know that GIF where there's the speech bubble above someone's head and there's just pound signs and dot symbols and all that sort of scurrying around the head. And that was my head going like, well, what could they be possibly trying to do here? And crucially, they did not pit. And yes, as I said at the start of the podcast, that gave Max track position. And yes, Oscar, towards the end of the Grand Prix, went, all right, well, what we'll do is we'll take our final pit stop a little bit early, and that will enable me to try and hunt down Max and use my newer tyres. Fine. But that didn't happen. They didn't have the pace advantage. Jamie Chadwick said on Sky she wondered if McLaren had had the pace advantage just to be able to make up for it anyway and hunt them down and re-overtake. They didn't. So, listen, the McLaren boys, both impressively, particularly Lando, I thought, impressively magnanimous in the pen after the race, sort of saying, hindsight is a wonderful thing. It's obvious in hindsight. But let's be really clear here, Betty. When the stakes are this high, yeah, it's easy to sit here and say, it's easy to say in hindsight, I'm sorry, McLaren, you need to be better. This is a big mistake, and it's yet another example of McLaren holding the door open and saying, Red Bull, Max, come on in, everyone, take a seat, be in this title fight, because we are letting you into it, because that, at this point of the season, is a huge error.
Well, the person that it affects the most is Oscar Piastri, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But why do you think McLaren chose to do this? Because they could have pitted one of the cars. They could have done a split strategy.
As you say, it's a mistake. Okay, right. Well, so then we look at why was the mistake happen. Betty, to your point first, split strategy. To me, that is the obvious thing to do in that situation when you've got two cars running at the top. It's Formula One folklore as old as the hills, that you split your strategy. So we'll make sure that if there's even a vague question, we'll do one with one car and one with the other. That would seem the obvious thing to do, Betty. You are absolutely right. Now, then the Formula One world on social media and all the telly coverage afterwards is going, well, the reason you didn't do that is because that would have advantaged your race leader, and that's fair enough because your race leader is, the race leader for a reason. He's got that advantage because he's leading the race. Were they worried that it would disadvantage Lando, one car over the other? So did they do it because of papaya rules? They are insisting not after the Grand Prix. Andrea Stella said, no, we just decided not to. Lando in the pen afterwards said, no, I don't think that was the case. We just decided not to. Oscar said, I don't know. We haven't discussed it yet. We'll need to discuss it as a team. I'll be honest, Betty. I don't know what you think. It feels to me that that's why they did it. Because if they're turning around and saying, no, we just decided not to. Well, why? What were you thinking? There's no... I said at the start of the podcast, I was sat there racking my brain going, why would you have done that? Okay, it left you more flexible at the end of the race, but that's still a huge gamble to not get one of your two compulsory pit stops done and out the way for free under a safety car. I just don't get it. Andrea Stella said, well, we didn't think everybody else would come in when he was talking to Sky after the race. My question back would be, why? Why? Obviously they were. You all know more about Formula One than me, and I'm sat there at home going, oh, everyone's going to come in. You must know that. So to me, Betty, it feels like, despite what they say, I have to be honest, it feels like they were papaya rulesing. Betty, do you agree with that?
I do. I think I was listening to F1 TV, and DC and various other people were all saying that's obviously why they did it. Because can you imagine if they'd kept one car out, pitted one car, it would look like you're favouring one car, and they're trying to do this season on a level playing field. But
yes, of course they are.
It's really got them into a hole now, hasn't it?
Yeah, because it is. You do have to favour the car in front sometimes in motor racing, and if you were to turn around and say, "Oh, well, we're favouring By the way, I think they'd have done that if Oscar was winning or Lando was winning. I think they'd have done it either way around because that's the way they've done it all season. But Betty made, if you're not watching on YouTube, when Betty went "but" there, Betty sort of made the most fantastic question mark emoji face with her face.
Sorry,
Betty,
that wasn't very... yeah.
No, but I was about to say, I went to a jump because I was like, yes, your face that's perfect. But because you do have to favour the person in front. Oscar was deservedly in front. He was the best McLaren driver all weekend. He was deservedly in front. So I just don't see any way that call could have worked. And also, you have to make a decision of, all right, we're trying to play it fair, but you could equally argue if we hadn't done that, then both cars would have been disadvantaged, as was exactly the case. So, it was just, mate, me and you have agreed, aren't we? Like, it has to be, to quote Nate Saunders, a mate of mine and a brilliant F1 journalist, he overheard in the paddock someone say, they papaya ruled themselves into a hole. I mean, that sort of sums it up, doesn't it? That seems to be what's happened, surely.
I'm in shock by it.
Are you?
No, I am. This is for McLaren. This is a disaster. It really is. They could have gone into that final race of the season in such a good position, in a better position than they're in now for both their drivers. And I know, Zach Brown still wants to make it possible for both drivers to win the championship. Oscar can't now.
They again, you just said, Betty, you were watching on F1 TV, I was watching on Sky, so we've both got the...
We're across everything over here on the Fast and the Curious.
Yeah, and everybody said the same thing. And then Sky went one step further as to play the clip. They were clever in doing this, to play the clip that they had when they did they did a podcast with Zach and Andrea together. And Zach sort of went, we'd rather lose the title than not do it our way. We want to do it fairly because their argument will be they're creating this dynasty for a long period of time. Okay, guys, well, you are testing that theory, aren't you? Because that could be what's about to happen. Because the thing is, Betty, you say you're in shock. I've said this on the podcast before, and I'm going to keep saying it. They've had the quickest car in Formula One, really, judging it as a whole. Of course, there's different races, of course, but broad picture, they've had the quickest car in Formula One since Miami of last season. If they don't win the driver's title this year, many would have argued they should have won it last year. If they don't win it this year, it's a disaster. So yeah, you can sit there and go, we want to do it our way. Well, I hope you're ready to face the consequences of that, guys. I hope you're true to your word, because you're not just holding the door ajar here for Max and Red Bull. You're pushing it wide open, shoving a doorstop in, standing to one side and ushering them through.
I actually do have a lot of respect for McLaren for trying to do something different, trying to not have a number one driver, trying to keep it fair between these two fantastic drivers that they've got. I do have respect for them because it hasn't really been done before. However, the question that I do have is, let's say Lando does win the title next weekend. Next season, are they going to do this again? Or is Lando then going to be their number one driver because he won the title? Like, how do you see this going? What's the future? We
are the same person. I was thinking this during the race. This is something we haven't discussed over text, and I was thinking exactly the same thing. Well, we'll it's a question for next season. We'll see, won't we? Because we'll see Zach's thing in the podcast where he says we'd rather do it this way. Well, we'll see, won't we? Because next season, as you say, mate, that might well be the case. But to your first point there, I agree with you. And I've said on the podcast, go back to mid-season, I was like, look, we can moan about how it's happening, but it's working. They haven't come together on track and they've got this great big advantage. So I completely agree with you, unless they lose the title, because it's fair enough. They want to create a dynasty where these two can be up the front for years and years and years. And therefore they don't want to annoy one of them now and sacrifice this pairing in the future. I get it, but that only works if you win the title. And Max was so... The thing is, Max is so good at going, I was the bloody best here, but he's also being so fair in going, oh no, we're only in this because they're inviting us in. So Betty, your point is, I completely agree with you, and I've said what you've said all season, but it only works unless they don't lose it. And Andrea said, again, I'll go back to the interview. At the end of the race, he said it was a conscious decision and they didn't expect everyone else to pit. Well, that's a cock-up. He didn't directly say if it was down to papaya rules. Me and Betty both sort of think it was. And he said they still want to make it possible for both drivers to win the championship. Well, guess what? It's possible for both drivers to win the championship, and it's possible for you to hand it to Max.
It is indeed. Well, on that note, we're going to hand it to the adverts. Christian, the end of the season is getting so incredibly close. The championship battle has been insane. We're all going to miss it so much when that final race of the season comes around, aren't we?
I mean, I'm usually ready for a break at the end of the F1 season, but you just kind of don't want this one to end, do you? Like with so little in it, with Lando and Oscar going between them. But like the winter break is getting shorter and shorter. So there's us saying we don't want this season to end, but 2026 will literally be here before we know it.
I know, I think you need a holiday, to be honest. I think we all need a holiday. But us sports fans, we're so fickle, aren't we? Because instantly there is going to be a whole load of new storylines that we are just going to get carried away with. Whole load of new drivers that we are going to get behind and say that they're going to win the championship. And there's also going to be brand new cars for everyone to get used to as well in 2026. And a whole new flipping team joining the grid as well. There is so much drama. I just love it. I love it.
So much drama. But that means now is actually a good time to start plotting out which races you might want to get to next season, because with F1 only getting bigger and better and more exciting, tickets for Grand Prix, they get snapped up so fast.
And that, Christian Hugel, is where our good friends at Gulliver's come in. We've spoken about them a fair bit this season, but if you haven't heard of them, they're basically a cheat code for getting you to your dream race weekend.
And what's been so lovely is the amount of you who've been in touch saying you've used Gulliver's and you've either gone or are going to a Grand Prix. You guys are actually getting in touch with Gulliver's, and it's absolutely brilliant. You guys are telling us how brilliant they are, because as we all know by now, they just take the faff out of all of the logistics that come with following F1 around the world. And trust me, as someone that goes to a fair share of races, if I could pay someone to take care of my travel, accommodation, getting me to and from the race, just letting me enjoy the racing, I would give them a blank check. Take all of my money. Here is my debit card, because honestly, it can be a nightmare. It's so worth doing, having Gulliver's just sort it for you so you can enjoy Formula One.
Here is everything. Take it all. Because you always get lost as well, don't you? So it would actually be really helpful for you. It's also pretty mad that you can get everything in one place. And Gulliver's have already started taking bookings for the 2026 season, everybody. So you need to get on it already. If you head to gulliverstravel.co.uk, you'll see packages for some of the most iconic circuits on the calendar, like Silverstone, Monza, Spa, and also Monaco.
Yeah, Gulliver's take care of everything, and there's even Gulliver's tour managers on hand at every race. Like, it can be daunting when you're at these tracks, a long way away from home, in the middle of a foreign country that you don't know. So having somebody just there to talk to is amazing. They make sure every detail of the race weekend is taken care of. That website, again, is gulliverstravel.co.uk. Get planning your 2026 Formula One season right now.
Welcome back, everybody. We are still trying to get over everything that we have just witnessed.
I think you especially. I think you... I'm just worried you're going to be... We've said that Betty's in the car. You're going to be okay to drive after it? You're still in shock?
I don't know.
You're going to need to go and have like a herbal tea or something before you go?
I am just really shocked that McLaren made this mistake at this stage. I just really, really am. We've talked a lot about it, but let's talk a little bit about Oscar, because I think he is going to be leaving the paddock today the most upset, isn't he? Because Lando's still got the lead. Oscar he's going to need something quite big to happen for him to end up winning this Drivers' Championship. And he had an outstanding weekend. Zach Brown said it himself. He was spotless, Oscar.
I didn't... So, Oscar is good in Qatar. So I expected Oscar to be better than we have previously seen this weekend. I expected it to be a step up compared to what we've seen in the last handful of races. What I did not expect was Oscar to be this good. Just because to so dramatically turn around your form, it'd be like, to have really struggled week in, week out, and then to come in this weekend and have what would have been a clean sweep of a weekend. He was quickest in free practice one. He got sprint quali pole. He won the sprint race. You know, he was absolutely flawless, which is impressive in itself, but is so impressive considering the form that's gone in previous weeks. The level of picking himself up, remarkable. And you know, I have said so many times this season, I think Oscar Piastri will be a world champion. No matter what happens this season, he'll go on to win world championships unless he gets extremely unlucky, Fernando Alonso style, and makes the wrong driver moves, whatever. I think Oscar will be a multiple world champion. And this sort of sums up why, because form is temporary, but class is forever. And Oscar really showed his class this weekend to bring himself back in. I can't praise him enough. He was fantastic this weekend. And therefore, it's so hard that he's not won this race because he deserved it.
Brutal.
And enormous credit to Lando Norris as well, who, by the way, didn't have a bad weekend. It wasn't like Lando was bad, because he wasn't. Once again, it's not a strength of his. He didn't get off the line brilliantly, and he let Max past him. Okay, fine. And he wasn't quite on Oscar's pace, but he wasn't far off. And after the race, he was so chilled, and he said, well, it's cost Oscar a win today. It was like Lando was going, yeah, you know, it was Oscar's. Lando was impressively magnanimous after the race. So, yeah, Oscar was amazing, Betty. Oscar had such a good weekend. And listen, I suppose the one thing he will sleep well at night with is him saying, I did everything I could.
Yeah, he did do everything he could. And also, there was one point where he was sort of like making his own strategy, and he was like, right, I'm going to try and do this, and then let's pit now, and then I'm going to try and catch Max up.
You could argue someone had to, couldn't you?
Yeah. His radio after the race, when he just went speechless, I just felt for him.
Yeah.
But him and McLaren are going to learn from this. He'll learn from this as an experience. And McLaren as a team are gonna learn from this. That's a positive,
if you like. Yeah, I hope so.
I'm just trying to find the positives over here.
Clutching at those straws. I hope so for their sake. As I say, I respect the papaya rules thing, but I think it's another example of where they've taken it too far for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't know why they made that decision. I would love someone. I mean, Zach Brown couldn't really answer it. He was sort of saying the things that we had in front of us were obviously wrong. He just put his hands up and said we made the wrong decision. He sounded so deflated, but so incredibly frustrating. Max Verstappen is now 12 points away from Lando Norris going into the final race. Who do you think has the advantage? I was going to ask out of the three, but we know Oscar doesn't have the advantage. But between sort of Lando and Max, Lando has this lead, but 12 points, it's not a lot.
Lando has always performed well in Abu Dhabi. Certainly going back as far as 2021, he hasn't been beaten by a teammate in Abu Dhabi. So that's a big advantage. He also didn't seem upset, angry, cross at the end of the race. He seemed very chilled. So he's still in pole position because he's got the points gap, and you're going to a weekend where he does, like we said going into this one, Oscar tends to perform well in Qatar. It's a Lando track in Abu Dhabi, so he's still got the advantage. Oscar has brought himself right back into contention because it looks like he might have left that dip in form behind him. So you can't rule Oscar out. I'm not ruling Oscar out. But I know you want to talk about Max Verstappen.
I'm just so incredibly... Well, isn't everybody? Isn't everyone so incredibly impressed with Max Verstappen? I know... I know it was McLaren that lost the win for them and handed it to Red Bull. But Max just thrives in this situation, doesn't he? He just thrives. He went into this race and he said, I've got nothing to lose, really. I'm just going to give it everything. And he did straight from the off. And I just think, I just watch him and I go, God, this man is impressive.
I think two things can be true. I think he can have won this race because McLaren let him back in. But also, I believe he's the best driver in Formula One. I'm starting to believe he's the best there's ever been in Formula One. Although I hate the historical comparisons, but to put it this way, there's never been anybody better. So two things can be true. Yes, he's been let in by McLaren, but also I believe that nobody else would be in this position if it wasn't. Nobody else other than Max would be in this position. Sorry, I've not put this very well, have I? But you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, he was 104 points behind.
It's just
3
remarkable.
months ago.
It's just he's the best driver in Formula One. Nobody else would be in this position other than him. Yes, McLaren have held the door open, but it's because of his brilliance. The thing is with Max is he's so rarely doesn't get the best out of the car. Somebody may pick me up on this. I'm just scanning my brain. Memory's not my strong point of my Formula One coverage, but I can only really think of Barcelona where he had his Red Sea moment with Russell. That feels. I'm open to being corrected here. That feels like it's the only weekend
I feel
of the
there
season.
May have been another one.
Well, what I'm saying is where he's not got 100% out the car. Regardless, the point I'm making is there might be another one. The point I'm making is he will almost certainly always not just get the most out of the car, but actually get a bit more than that out of the car. He's remarkable, and he's scary. He's scary because again, you go into 2026 thinking, oh, well, we need to make the best car. Well, if you were going to win the title, well, Red Bull don't. They need to make nearly the best car. He's a cheat code. He's ridiculous. He's absolutely insane. So and also, sorry, I tell you what the thing I'm obsessed with. The thing I'm obsessed with, absolutely obsessed with, is like Martin Bundle does the post-race interviews, and like we're talking about the championship, and it's a 3-way title battle, and it's the way Martin goes. So Max, you're right in it, and he goes, yeah, but I don't get too stressed either way. It's almost like he knows he shouldn't really have had a chance, so he doesn't really care. He says all the time. Do you know, I interviewed him 2 days after he won his first world title, and he said, I don't care about winning 7. I don't care. And I didn't believe him at the time. But now he's won 4, and he's still going, I don't care how many it is. I believe him. I didn't then. I do now, because it's almost like he's going, I don't really care whether I win this championship. I'd love to, because it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? It'd be a nice thing to go and sit and reflect on over my Christmas dinner. Yeah, it'd be lovely. But I don't have to, because I know that I shouldn't really have had any right. And that ice cool nature of his is such an advantage in a title fight, because he's like, well, sod it. If I win, lovely. If I don't, I should never have won in the first place. It doesn't really matter. It's cool.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that totally, because I was watching him on the podium and he looked so happy. He could not wipe that smile off his face. And I haven't seen him smile like that for a very, very long time.
Well, no, and I don't know if what I'm saying is true. I'm wildly speculating. I just love that he's so chilled. He's just so chilled.
The one thing that you can say about Max Verstappen is that he thrives being in this like underdog position where he can just throw the kitchen sink at it. There's not really that much pressure because there's nothing to lose. He's chasing people down. He just loves it. This is when Max Verstappen comes alive, I think.
Yeah, and Betty, you're so right. And I think he's gained so many fans this year who've loved seeing him revel in the underdog role. I think he's been thoroughly entertaining to watch this season. And by the way, sending Hannah Schmidt, their head of strategy, up onto the podium in a race where you've won the race because you've got your strategy right. It's lovely to see female representation on the podium. It's also lovely to see some good old-fashioned sporting housery, some trolling. It was brilliant fun. I'm all for that. I'm all for a bit of trolling. Good, well done, Red Bull.
To be fair, I'm buzzing that Hannah was there on the podium. However, and at first I was like, yeah, Red Bull, they smashed that strategy. Everyone smashed that strategy apart from McLaren. So
I hadn't thought of that. On that basis, like Sauber could send their head of strategy and they won the race as well. Like, yeah, we basically did what everyone else did.
Hannah, you did a great job. Great strategy. But I mean, everyone did it.
Hannah, well done. You did the bare minimum. You didn't totally it up. Yeah, lovely. Excellent.
Oh, God. Right, we can't talk about the Qatar Grand Prix without mentioning our good old mate Carlos Sainz at Williams. We'll do that after the break. Welcome back. Another podium for Carlos Sainz. This was just unbelievable. I actually think this is my favourite bit of the whole entire race. But this is wild, Christian. How has Carlos Sainz managed to do this? Because it's not very often that Williams get 2 podiums in one season. Hasn't happened for a long time.
I think I love this man. I think I love him. Like the way we said it to him face to face at the start of the season. It seems like 9 years ago, where we said, you have been so classy and being dropped from Ferrari, and he was so classy about it. He then gets in the Williams. He has such a tough start because we'd said over and over again how tricky it is in the final year of a rule set to get used to a car completely different. And he had a horrible start to the season. And Alex Albon also had a great start to the season. And that sort of emphasised the difference. And we said race after race, oh, it's not happening for Carlos at Williams, and it was so hard to see, and he looked so sad, like a sort of little sad Spanish puppy. And it's been amazing to see him roar back and show what a phenomenally good Formula One driver he is. And we're in a bizarre situation, actually, aren't we, where without question, Ferrari would have had more points if they'd kept Carlos Sainz. And without question, Red Bull would have had more points if they'd signed Carlos Sainz. Neither have signed Carlos Sainz. One's dropped Carlos Sainz. And if you're James Vowles, you're going, all my Christmases came at once when he came on the market. Because the thing is, I tweeted this, and I'm sticking by it. If you say to me, Christian, you can be a Formula One driver next season, I go, you're insane. I'm fundamentally not good enough. But all right, fine. And then if they say you can drive a Ferrari or drive a Williams, I'm going Williams. They're showing me far more than that they've got what it takes to climb the ranks than Ferrari have. And he's just been remarkable in this second half of the season. Yes, there's been the odd messy race where he's had incidents. It's not all been plain sailing. But he's shown his pace. He's shown his class. And make no mistake, Alex has had a bad run in a similar way that I'm not worried about when Oscar had his bad run and said he'll come out of it. In a similar way to when I said that Carlos had a bad run and I said he'll come out of it. Alex will come out of it. I'm not worried about Alex. He's just in a sticky patch. But they have got such a great driver lineup that if they nail these regulation changes, I think you can expect many a podium next season for Williams.
Which, they've been working towards for a very long time, as James Vowles likes to tell us, 2026.
1912, they started working on the 2026 regulations, 1912.
Do you know what, though? I am buzzing for James Vowles because he's so good. He's so switched on. Like, I would quite like him to just sort out my entire life, to be honest. He looks like the sort of person that would really be able to get you a good mortgage. But I'm just so happy for them. He's worked so hard at Williams. I'm really excited to see what they achieve next season. And Carlos Sainz, buzzing. Because he had a slow start to this season, if you remember. Like, he struggled, didn't he, in that Williams? And now look at him. Flying! Another podium. Shall we move on to Radio Radar, Christian?
I think we should actually, Derek, yes.
Is there anything that stood out for you?
We say a lot in that we are a podcast hosted by Brits and we go across the world, and we sometimes say, did this translate across the world? And people like to leave us comments, but yeah, no, this happened. So I'll be really intrigued to know, Australians, does the phrase "they're like buses," did that make it to Australia? It's a very British phrase of going, oh, they're like buses. You wait. Buses. They're like London buses. You wait ages and two can come along at once. Which Tom Stallard said to Oscar after qualifying. I love Tom Stallard, another wonderful man. But he went, Oscar got paused. Oh, they're like buses, Oscar. Two come along at once. And I wondered if this young Aussie in the cars, what on earth is the man talking about? So I'm please comment, let us know. Is this a thing in Australia? Did you know what Tom was on about there? But I thought it was a very lovely, almost George Russell-esque in how British it was. I really enjoyed that.
They probably won't, because in Australia public transport is quite on it, whereas in the UK it just isn't. And sometimes you're at a bus stop and you're waiting ages.
They won't have had this catchphrase because Australia is a functioning, well-run country. Yeah, good.
Well, there we go. The one that stood out to me is Charles Leclerc. on lap 31, he just absolutely snitched on George Russell, didn't he?
Really
Check
funny.
George Russell every lap.
It wasn't just don't just check him. Every lap, not just
Every
say
lap.
this one. Every lap, please. The snitch. No, that was very, very good.
That was my highlight. And then other than that, I didn't really pick anything out because I was just distracted by everything that was going on.
No, me too. But people always say we missed bits on this bit. So yeah, whatever we missed, let us know.
Yeah, do let us know, actually. If there was anything really good that we missed, let us know. Leave it in the comments of wherever you're listening or watching this podcast. Is there anything that went under the radar for you, Christian?
Yes, I just want to highlight two people in Under the Radar. One being Kimi Antonelli, who isn't just impressing me results-wise, but he's really impressing me pace-wise at the moment. It feels like he's after Baku, basically, when we sat on the podcast, Betty, and went, Toto being quite harsh on him, and we questioned whether that was the right decision. I mean, it might be coincidence, but the way Kimi's bounced back. Again, we talk about how impressive it is that Oscar managed to lift himself up out of a slump of form this weekend. Kimi's done the same. Yes, he had a snatch of oversteer at the end of the race that lets Lando through. And how crucial could that be, by the way, at the end of the season? So, yes, that was unfortunate from Kimi, but generally a very, very good weekend, again, from Kimi Antonelli pace-wise. And Isaac Hadjar, who Ted Kravitz sort of basically said it as fact. And everybody in the paddock has for ages been saying, oh, it's going to be Isaac and Max at Red Bull next season. Ted, I think it was in one of his notebooks over the course of the weekend, basically said, yeah, that's going to happen. And sort of said what we've all been thinking. So we're expecting him to be announced at Red Bull later this week. And we'll talk about that probably in the preview show if it's been announced for Abu Dhabi. But Isaac had another very good race right until the end, until it all went wrong, bless him. But he'd have finished P6. And again, what a result. So another impressive weekend from Hadjar, who deserves that promotion. And again, even I've said this a couple of weeks ago, I think, but I really hope Liam Lawson stays. He's been outraced by Hadjar, fair, but Yuki's had a better weekend than he's had. It's still not been good enough. But, Liam Lawson 9th with Yuki Tsunoda 10th. You've still got Liam beating Yuki. So I do hope we get to see Liam Lawson stay in F1. But, yeah, well done, Isaac Hadjar. Good weekend on what feels like a significant weekend for him in terms of his career, where we think he's been told that he's going to be racing in a Red Bull next season, which is a surprise to precisely no one.
Yeah, you would have bet your house on it, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah, several houses.
Anything else you want to add, Christian Hugill?
No, other than to say that we have 3 episodes left of the Fast and the Curious regular edition. What do I mean by that? It's a tease. 3 editions of Fast and Curious regular edition left of the season, in that we'll be previewing Abu Dhabi later in the week. I'll be there, so I'll soak up the atmosphere and report back. So that'll drop on your feeds on Thursday. And then we'll be back straight after the race, or as quick as we physically can gather the troops after the race on Sunday to talk about who the new world champion is. I mean, that's pretty cool, right? And then we've got one more episode after that where we'll debrief the whole season with Karun Chandok, Sam Ryder, and a bunch of lovely Fast and Curious listeners alongside me, Betty and Greg, in London, which we're recording the week after Abu Dhabi, which if you're one of most people listening to this will not be there. So don't worry, you'll be able to watch and listen to it on the feed afterwards. So 3 left. And then something fun we're doing over the winter, which we'll tell you about later on. So that's all I've got to say, really. This is all to play for, and we will follow it right to the end and beyond.
Of course we will. Of course we will. It is so exciting. So yeah, like Christian said, we're back on Thursday with an Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview. It is the championship showdown. You will not want to miss it. I am so excited, Christian.
Do you know what the circuit's called in Abu Dhabi? Oh no! Oh, it all nearly went so well, and then right at the end, Betty's dropped her microphone, and the whole thing's gone to pot. You okay, hun?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. Anyway.
No, I was just saying that. Can you remember what the Abu Dhabi circuit's called?
Sorry.
The Abu Dhabi circuit's called?
Yas.
Yas
Marina.
Marina Circuit. I'll be at the Yas Marina Circuit, which I will be staying
Yes,
consistently all weekend.
Queen.
So that's something for you to all look forward to.
Well, that was a very dramatic ending there.
Wasn't
I
it just? Yeah, you dropped your mic.
Right, Christian, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you,
Hasn't it just?
everybody, for watching and listening. Please like and subscribe as well, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a comment as well. We like reading your comments, don't we?
Some of them.
The good and the bad.
I've not enjoyed reading every comment this season, but, you know, where we are.
I like it. I sit there. I look through them all. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Christian. We will see you guys on Thursday. Goodbye.
See you at Yas Marina.